Okay, welcome back. Let's carry on. So, where did we get to? Rose said, "Oh, but Simon wants to speak to you." Okay, and she said it in this, but Dina wasn't sure, but she could bear it. She couldn't bear the sound of Simon's horrible, dead-sounding voice. "Hurry up," murmured Rose. "He said, I'm at the BRC. She's got to come here. It's urgent." Dina shook her head. "I don't want to speak to him," she said, miserably. Rose uncovered the phone and spoke into it. "Dina won't come." The voice at the other end gabbled insistently. Dina couldn't catch the words, but Rose held out the phone again. "He says you've got to. He says it's urgent." "I know what he says," Dina interrupted bitterly. She felt like crying. Snatching the phone out of Rose's hands, she spoke into it quickly, while she could still keep her voice steady. "Look, I mean it. I'm not coming. It would be a really silly thing to do. I'm going to collect some evidence instead." She hunted for a word that might jolt Simon awake, a word that would mean nothing to the headmaster if he was listening. There was only one she could think of. "Treacle," she said fiercely. Almost before she'd finished saying it, the phone went dead. "What?" Dina frowned. "He's gone." Then she realised that there was no dialing tone. Sharply she looked up. Rose was standing by the telephone point, with a plug in her hand. "You cut me off," Dina said. Rose smirked. "You'd better go and collect your evidence, hadn't you? If it's so important." Grabbing the phone out of her hand, grabbing the plug out of her hand, Dina shoved it back into the socket, but it was too late. Whoever had been on the other end of the line had gone. 10 miles away, in the hospital, Harvey stood looking at another telephone. "She wouldn't come," he said, stunned. "What?" Mandy stared at him. "You can't have explained properly," Ingrid said. "She wouldn't refuse, not if she knew how important it was." "She knows," Harvey said miserably. "Rose was there. I asked if she'd told Dina and she said yes." You mean Dina knows that Lloyd's getting worse?" said Ian. Harvey nodded. "The doctor said we all had to talk to him." Mandy was almost in tears. "Dina's voice might get through, even though ours didn't. It's his last chance." Harvey looked grim. Rose told her that too, but she still wouldn't come. Ingrid shook her head. "What did she say?" "Said something about treacle," muttered Harvey. "Collecting evidence." And then she disconnected the phone. Ingrid shook her head. "She's flipped, hasn't she? Really flipped. What are we going to do about her?" "Who cares about Dina?" Harvey said bitterly. "It's Mum I'm worrying about. How am I going to tell her that Dina won't come?" Okay, there seems to have been a mix-up here with the 2 telephone calls. So I'd like you just to turn and talk and explain what's happened. Why do they think that Dina won't come and visit the hospital? Did she know that Lloyd was getting worse or not? Off you go. Okay, so hopefully we knew there that this was a bit of a nasty trick really from Rose, that Dina didn't know that she was being asked to go to the hospital to see Lloyd. She thought this was Simon again, and Rose really tricked her. So she doesn't know that Lloyd is getting worse, and now her friends and her family think that she's being really mean too by not visiting her brother in hospital. Okay, we're now on to chapter 13. Hatching. "So," murmured the director, "we need a different plan." Simon opened his eyes, suddenly aware of the straps cutting into his arms. Had he been asleep? He felt exhausted, as if he'd been struggling against a heavy weight. "What's going on?" he muttered. Did I? You have just been speaking on the telephone, said the director crisply, begging Dina Hunter to come here. I was asking Dina to come here? For a moment, Simon couldn't believe it. Then, with a shiver, he remembered what Dina had told him about the director. You hypnotised me. An expression of distaste crossed the director's face. It was an inefficient waste of energy. You are not a good subject. Almost as difficult as Lloyd and Harvey Hunter. But I did what you wanted. Simon found himself shaking. He felt horribly alone and afraid. Did I get Dina to come? Into a trap? The director smiled thinly. No, you failed. You begged her, but she refused. So much for friendship. So much for feelings. Don't you see how much better my creature will be without them? He turned towards the computer. Display best possible qualities of Hunter Lizard DNA mix. The computer screen filled with lines of words and figures. Simon leaned forward to read them, and the numbers whirled in his head. Physical strength 125, intelligence level 250, obedience 300, speed of growth 350, emotional sensitivity 004. Below the figures a message flashed. Develop this creature, yes or no. You can't develop it, Simon said. It wouldn't have any feelings. It would be a monster. You are too late, the director said calmly. What do you think is waiting to hatch out of that egg? He turned and pointed down the laboratory. As if he were in a nightmare, Simon felt his eyes travel helplessly towards the glass tank. Exactly. The director walked across to the tank and stood over it. As soon as I received the Dina Hunter's cheek sample smear, I mixed her DNA with the DNA of one of those lizards. Then I programmed the computer to consider all possible combinations of those genes to select the one most suited to my purposes. But that was only yesterday. Simon stared at the egg. It can't have reached that stage already. No? The director raised an eyebrow. You forget all the work these laboratories have done in speeding up growth. That was meant to help people. An expression of distaste crossed the director's face. You mean it was wasted? Until I came, this research centre concentrated on producing food for unnecessary people. But I have used the research intelligently to speed up my experiments. But nothing's meant to grow that fast, yelled Simon. It's unnatural. Unnatural? The director said disdainfully. Nature has had its day. I have replaced natural selection with computer selection under my control. That's monstrous, Simon shouted. It's impossible. It is efficient, and it is about to reach its climax now. The director looked at his watch and spun round to the big glass tank at the end of the lab. There was a loud sound snapping from inside the tank. Simon's eyes swung back to the egg, and he saw a long, dark crack appear across the top of it. His mouth went dry. The summit of evolution, the director said softly. The creature that will take over the world. There was a scrabbling sound, and the crack widened. Slowly, an elbow emerged. Then a whole arm, straightening as it wriggled free of the shell. Simon felt sick. The arm was pale and smooth skin and slightly freckled. As far as he could see, it looked uncannily like Dina's arm, except that it ended with scaly green fingers and sharp claws. At that moment, Dina herself was running towards the BRC, but she wasn't heading for the building. She was making for the woods at the back. Treacle is what she'd said on the phone. And that was what she was going to look at now. The insect trap was the only thing left, the only place where she might find more evidence about what was going on. It would have been safer to wait until dark, but things were moving too fast for that. She would just have to be careful. She climbed over the back wall of the BRC and wriggled her way along the ground inside, keeping under cover as she worked her way towards the dead tree and Simon's net. She had no idea what to expect. Would the net be empty? Would it be full of moths? Or would there be something monstrous and alien tangled in its meshes? Okay, quick pause. Again, I would like you to, with hands up, to say, what do you think might be in the net? Off you go. Okay, let's find out. There certainly wasn't anything big there. She could see that, even from the far side of the clearing. The net, though, looked peculiar. Something had obviously happened to it. Cautiously, Dina stood up and ran the short distance across the clearing, making sure that the tree's solid gnawed trunk hid her from the house. As she got closer, she saw that the treacle on the tree trunk was marked with long, scored lines. There had been something in the net, but it wasn't there anymore. It was only when she reached the tree and spread the net out in her hands that she realised what had happened. Whatever had been tangled up in it had gnawed its way out. The net was a strong one, but something had chewed through the mesh to make a hole at least 2 meters long. The severed ends were ragged and irregular. Dina touched them and drew her hand away quickly in disgust. They were coated with something glutinous and sticky, like spit. Reaching up and unhooking the net from the dead branches, she bundled it up. It was disgusting, but it was the nearest thing she had to a clue. She saw Simon's treacle tin under the tree and picked that up too. She was just pushing the treacle tin into her pocket when there was a further noise up in the garden. From the direction of the ice house, she heard... What sound do you think she heard? Bzzz. Dina's heart thudded. Dropping onto her hands and knees, she began to crawl towards the ice house, still keeping under cover. From the back, the ice house was just a low green mound, but when she crawled round to the front, she saw steps going down below ground level. They led to a little door in the side of the mound. Obviously, it wasn't open much. There was a tangle of strange creeper in front of it, and it looked well established. The live green strands were twined round great bundles of withered dead ones. Dina stood up and crept down the steps towards the door. Now she was so close. She could tell that buzzing came from behind it, and every step it sounded louder. Bzzz. With her free hand, she parted the strands of the creeper, looking for the door handle. What she found instead was a black hole. The wood of the door was rotten and had been scraped away, like the wood of the dead tree. There was a large hole just above Dina's eye level. The buzzing sounded louder now. Holding her breath, Dina stood on tiptoe, trying to look through the hole, but it was pitch dark inside the ice house. She was just wondering whether to risk opening the door when she heard a rustle of leaves behind her and the sound of low voices coming down the garden. Desperately, she scuttled up the steps away from the door, making for the nearest patch of rhododendrons, and she burrowed in as deep as she could. She was just in time. A few seconds later, 2 men in white coats walked into the clearing. They made straight for the ice house and hesitated at the top of the steps. Dina thought they looked nervous, almost frightened. Finally, they walked down the steps to examine the door, and like Dina, they parted the shoots of the creeper. The moment they saw the hole,